He's a little bit country. He's a little bit rock and roll. He's a little bit polka, death metal, abstract jazz, and German industrial techno. He's Scott Leffler. He's not allowed near the stereo at parties.
Welcome to Here's the Thing. I'm your host. My name's Scott Leffler. It's episode 7, Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, and I think it's a pretty good show. We've got Matt Smith from 1120 Press today, talking about 1120 Press, the local music scene, his history, etc. And then we've got an extended version of Andrew McGrath. Sometimes more of Drew is not necessarily better, but in this case, I think it is. Also, we've got... all right, well, I'll just get into it. So we've got music from Wave the Flag, Virus X. Virus X is a band that Matt Smith talked about. And I don't remember if it was during the interview or off after the microphones are off, but Virus X did mention them, so I'm kind of playing... Matt Smith did mention Virus X, so I'm kind of playing this for him. Of Night and Light and Kennedy Carpool. Now, the songs that I'm playing by them are all from Western New York Music Scene, Volume 4. All Western New York has a very extensive music library. All Western New York Radio has a very extensive local music library. And I ran across this CD the other day. Now, All Western New York Radio had sponsored this. We were one of the sponsors, along with Mama Betty's, Endless Ink, Blue Moose, Jams, Honey Bee, and The Bus Garage. We were the sponsors of this album. And it's got 23 tracks, all from local bands, Rochester to, Buffalo. We got some Fredonia, we got Niagara Falls, a little Lockport, a little bit of everything on here. But I was going through things the other day, and I'm still in the process of adding the ID3 tags and information to all of our music library to make sure that when a song plays on All West New York Radio, and you're looking at it in the widget that plays our songs, that it has all that information, has the album cover, has the name of the band, has the song title, when available, has the, album title. So I'm going through and I run across this CD, and all 4 of the songs that are going to play during today's show are from this CD. It's Volume 4, so there is a Volume 1, 2, and 3, of course. And when I ran across this, I thought to myself, are they still doing these? And I remember getting an email to sponsor this. Or I thought it was an email. Turns out it wasn't an email. But now if you are like me, you have a Gmail account, and sometimes you'll be like, hey, I remember this conversation I had with so-and-so, and so you will enter a search term in your Gmail to figure out, what the deal was. So in my Gmail, in the All West New York Radio Gmail, now I have several Gmails, so that's another issue, but I enter Western New York Music Scene, Volume 4, blah, 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 and I run across this email from years and years ago. I feel really bad about it because I never responded to it. Let me see if... There we go. So, and now I just feel like the biggest jerk. So, in February of 2018, I got a very lengthy email from Eric from Janie Crash and the Tall Men. And it basically says, hey, I know you're involved in the music scene. I've got all these ideas, and I think that you would be helpful, etc., etc. Goes on to, list some of these ideas. This is a very well thought out email. This is not something that he snapped together in a second. This is something that he took a while to think about, and then type out, and then hit send. And I got the email, and I responded, I wanted to let you know first and foremost that I got your email, and I'm amenable to some sort of collaboration. That said, let me read over it again later when I have more time and get back to you with some thoughts. But as a rule, I'm always happy to work with people. And I signed it, and I sent it off. And then I completely forgot about it. And it has been 7 years. And I feel horrible. So, Eric from Janie Crash and the Tall Men, I want to apologize. Because, it was 7 years ago, so I have no idea what else was going on in my life at the time. Can't tell you why I didn't get back to you. It's not because I didn't want to work together. I love working with other people. I love doing projects. I love doing things. So if you still want to do something, let me know. And I will try and pull more than my share of weight since, I did make you wait a little bit. If you don't want to do anything because I'm unreliable, I completely understand because, yeah, dude, I am so sorry. So really, just want to apologize to Eric from Janie Crash and the Tall Men. And, yeah, if you have sent me an email and I didn't get back to you, or I got back to you with something that said, I'll get back to you later and then didn't, shoot me another email. Because apparently in early 2018, I was not in the right, not in my right head or something. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I wish that there were, so I also did more research, and the Western New York Music Scene Facebook page, which was originally created to promote these collaborative CDs, is now just kind of like a, hey, who's got a show coming up this week sort of thing. And I went through that a little bit and saw that they are no longer doing the CDs, which is, of course, a shame, but completely understandable. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, sometimes a lot of money. Not always a lot of money, but oftentimes a lot of money to come up with these sort of things. I've always had a collaborative CD that I wanted to do, and I'm not going to tell you the details because I don't want someone to steal the idea from me. Although I have had this idea now for a decade, so maybe I should just put it out there so that somebody will steal it, and at least it'll get done. But I want to do a local CD, a CD with local musicians, and they're all cover songs from a certain album. I just think it'd be really cool. But that's all the details I'm going to go into on that. Anyway, today's show, we've got Matt Smith from 1120 Press, Andrew McGrath and I talk sports and not sports, and then we've got music from Wave the Flag, Virus X, Of Night and Light, and Kennedy Carpool. So look, if you tune into the show for my political takes, sometimes it's hard because it seems like the world is falling apart and that half the people in the United States do not comprehend reality. And it gets so frustrating. And I want to scream and I want to yell. And so sometimes I try to bottle that up. And that's a little bit of what I'm doing this week. Because we had these, protests all over the country this past week. The No Kings protests. Organizers, say that there were thousands of people in thousands of cities across the United States. They say as many as 5 million people nationwide protested, which I think is awesome. The protesting for something that you believe in. And the fact that there are 5 million people in the United States that went out and protested something that they believe in. The thing that they believe in is that Donald Trump is an asshole. And I personally agree with them. But it's difficult because I'm used to, I don't have a problem debating politics, debating tax structure, debating, how we could do this or that or the other thing. But we're not debating politics. We're debating humanity. And that's very frustrating because we're basically debating whether or not certain people have a right to exist. And I don't feel that that's worthy of debate. I don't feel that the side opposite of mine, my opinion being that people do have a right to exist, I don't feel that the opposite opinion to that should be allowed oxygen. I don't want to debate something so absolutely asinine, so absolutely horrible. And unfortunately, the Trump administration, Trumpers, maggots, whatever you want to call them, a lot of their opinion is that these people don't have a right to exist. And it gets frustrating for me to even contemplate debating that, to even contemplate talking about that. And not just that. I mean, obviously that's huge. But debating reality, as I already said. So if you saw the parade in Washington, D.C., the 250th anniversary parade for the United States Army, noble goal. A lot of people turned on it because Donald Trump made it about him, which is what he does. And he made it into basically a birthday party for himself, and a lot of people didn't like it. I think it would have had a lot more support if Donald Trump hadn't been president, because, frankly, everything the man touches turns to shit. But so we've got conflicting accounts of the parade. If you watch it on television, you see that it was kind of sparsely attended. But the maggots of the world are saying, oh my God, hundreds of thousands of people there, and the most people at a birthday party ever, and it's like, dude, what version of reality are you, like, look, this started, 9 years ago with his first inauguration, where he's like, this was the most attended inauguration in the history of nowhere in history have more people ever been in the same place at the same time. Whatever bullshit he was spewing. And you can see things with your own eyes. January 6th, another example of this. You can see things with your own eyes. I watched on the news January 6th as that whole thing unfolded in Washington, D.C., the insurrection, if you will, and I would call it an insurrection. Is it a nationwide insurrection? No. Were those people insurrecting? Yes, they most certainly were. They were trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power of the government. They were trying to basically overthrow the United States government by force. Those people there at the Capitol on that day, forcing their way into the building, wearing military fatigues, carrying zip ties, all that fun shit. Watching on news, you were like, wow, this is bad. And then 3 days later, we've got half the country going, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just some peaceful protest. They were invited into the building. Yeah, that explains why they smashed windows to get in. Ashley Babbitt, trying to climb through a window and getting shot, and people acting like she was some sort of a hero. So it is difficult. I want to talk about politics, but it's very difficult to do so when almost half the country doesn't believe that reality is real. So I don't know what to do. So, well, I want to do this show and talk about politics. Sometimes I gotta swallow that down and just talk about music with Matt Smith from 1120 Press and sports with Andrew McGrath, and things that aren't politics. So that's that. Every once in a while, I do make some political takes on X and Blue Sky. You can follow me on both those at Scott Leffler. I'm also on Threads, and you name it, I'm there. Scott Leffler is the thing to search for always. Anyway, I'm going to take a break. We're going to play a song by Wave the Flag. When we come back, we've got Matt Smith from 1120 Press. You're listening to Here's the Thing. My name's Scott Leffler. This is All Western New York Radio. so much to do in Western New York. Find your faves at allwnyevents.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, the role of Scott Leffler will be played by Dr. Pepper.
Joining us in studio today at the All Western New York studios in the old Carborundum Building, 1625 Buffalo Avenue, Niagara Falls, New York, is Matt Smith from 1120 Press. Why do I screw up the introductions more often than not? Last week I had Mark Polenkars on, and I almost introduced him as County Comptroller Mark Polenkars, and I caught myself, and I caught myself with you as well. But 1120 Press, which I'm sure has some significance.
It's my birthday, 1120.
Gotcha. So 1020 would be completely. 1020 is closer to my birthday. Maybe that's what I was thinking. My birthday's 1015, so maybe I just wanted to wrestle control of that wonderful operation that you've got going.
Not exactly original, but I'm a big Henry Rollins fan, and he has a publishing house, 21361.
All right.
And so I'm kind of copying him with 1120 Press.
And Stephen King wrote a book about that, right?
I don't know. I'm not a Stephen King fan.
No? No, so Stephen King wrote a book with, now I'm going to screw it up, Kennedy's assassination date. 11/22/63?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the name of the book, was 11/22/63.
I should clarify, too, that I have nothing against Stephen King. It's just his books overwhelm me, and, I don't have the patience to read the number of pages he writes. Although I read his book on writing, which was sensational.
Have you had much chance to interact with Nick Lucido from Exum Priory?
No.
Nick is an old friend of mine. Used to do a podcast here on All West New York. Lives in the neighborhood here, basically. And he just kind of gets around. Good guy. He was sitting where you're sitting a couple weeks ago, and we somehow almost spent the entire show talking about books. Was not the intention, but we did. And we both had the same basic view of Stephen King. My view of Stephen King is that he's a phenomenal writer, but cannot write an ending to save his life. And that's, so maybe a book writing about writing, coming up with an ending isn't quite so necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at how much I liked that book, but it was really sensational, and it takes really delved into a lot of his personal problems, too, which I did not know that he had. And, I as a writer myself, I was a journalist my whole career, and I've written books. I'm an author, and just his output, his prolificness is something I just admire.
Him and Dean Koontz.
Yeah.
Dean Koontz puts out a book every 6 months. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So you've been a writer your whole life? Did you go to school for journalism?
Yeah. I was a career newspaper man, and I worked for several daily newspapers throughout the state, and then I ran the desk for the Associated Press for a time. So I was in charge of all the reporters for the Associated Press in New York State, north of New York City. So like at the State House, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo.
Gotcha.
So my background is print journalism. I spent a couple decades in print journalism.
Great. And are you still doing that? Did you get out of it?
I took an early retirement.
Good for you.
I had moved around a lot in my journalism career, and I had moved my kids more times than I ever intended to or wanted to. And when I was working for the AP, they were going through a point where they were laying thousands of people off, because they're worldwide. And they weren't going to lay me up, but they were going to relocate me. And I wanted to stay in it. I wanted to relocate. I would have been up for it. They were going to send me to either Newark or Milwaukee. I was hoping for Milwaukee. I didn't want to raise my kids in Newark. But my son was in 7th grade at the time. Middle school is a tough time to move a kid. My kids are different. If it was my daughter, who was older, I probably would have done the move.
Right.
But I didn't want to move my son in 7th grade. So after 20-something years in journalism, I went to work in communications for the State Teachers Union, and I stayed there for long enough I had a good contract, and I was able to retire early. So that allowed, I raised my kids in Albany primarily, and that allowed me to move back to Buffalo because my wife works for FedEx Ground, and she was able to transfer anywhere in the country. So which was cool because both of my kids, even though they're not from here in Buffalo, they both went to college here. They always considered Buffalo a second home because my family was here.
Now, did you grow up here?
I did.
Whereabouts?
I grew up right behind the Southgate Plaza in West Seneca.
All right.
Yeah, so...
I lived in West Seneca for a time.
Yeah, so it was interesting because I had been away from Buffalo for 33 years, and I could not remember how to get anywhere. And I relearned Buffalo through my kids, who didn't grow up here but both went to college here.
Right.
My daughter actually went to Niagara University, and she ended up staying here after she graduated. She's a clinical cancer researcher. And so that was another reason we moved back, was to be with her, so...
What does your wife do?
She's a manager at FedEx Ground.
Oh, you did mention that. I'm sorry.
And she works for a living.
Gotcha.
That is a tough job.
So you were a journalist for, most of your adult life, then went to went to work for the Teachers Union. Your kids both went into the medical field in some way or another.
Yeah,
They decided I want to make actual money. Whatever Dad's doing is not working for me.
You know it. You know it firsthand. You don't earn any money in journalism, neither newspaper or radio. But no, the funny thing was they were always really good in math and science, and I wasn't. And my son is an epidemiologist. My daughter's a clinical cancer researcher. And they actually had a rule when they were growing up that Dad did not get near their science homework or math homework. And I didn't. And so they became successful because I did my part and stayed away.
Now, you say you're bad at math, and I tell everyone I'm bad at math. But I can add, subtract, multiply, divide like nobody's business. I can, 4-digit numbers, subtracting in my head, no problem. It's once you get past that, I am completely lost. Are you the same?
No.
No.
I'm really
bad at adding. Do you forget that the number 8 exists sometimes?
I'm bad at adding, subtract. I'm one of the few people left in the world that keeps a checkbook.
Gotcha.
Just because I like to just always be on top of what I have. And my checkbook is fraught with errors.
I don't even try. I have a check. I write one check a month.
Right.
It's for my rent. Here.
Yeah, I don't even know the last time I wrote a check. Yeah. I just like to keep a balance handy.
Right.
See where I'm spending.
Yeah.
And
I just check my apps.
Yeah.
This is how much money I have in the bank.
Right. Yeah. Me too. But
and I hope it's right.
My math errors in that checkbook are shocking. They're shocking. If I told you my SAT scores, you would be shocked. You would think I was lying. They were so low. But,
all right.
Yeah. No. So.
And then you went to work for the Teachers Union.
Yeah.
So you're in charge.
In communications.
Fair enough.
They kept me far away from numbers.
All right, so 1120 Press. I feel like you've been around for quite a while because you made quite an impact. But it's only been a couple of years.
Yeah, I grew up, when I was growing up in Buffalo, I kind of grew up in that first wave of punk rock and underground music, and my brother was in the band Snapcase, which is a very well-known hardcore band, and they're still around today, actually. So I was a scene kid when I was living in Buffalo in the late '80s, and I always kept my finger on the pulse, and when it came to music, and when I came back to Buffalo, having been a scene kid when I grew up, I was curious what was happening in the scene, and so I use journalism as a way to get into it. And the other reason I started...
Do you have any musical ability?
Yeah, I'm in 3 bands.
All right. I would call that some musical ability.
Yeah, so I'm a bass player. I'm the world's worst drummer, and I do vocals for 3 bands right now. But, back... I can remember being in a band in the 80s, and we played at a venue that was as big as an airplane hangar, and 3 people came. And it was a feeling I never forgot. And I've told this story before. Based on that feeling, that was one of my motivations in starting 1120 Press, because I want to make sure artists are seen, local artists are seen.
Right.
They're an important part of the community, and they work hard, and the talent in Buffalo is amazing across genres. And so I just felt like I'm a journalist, I'm a music fan. I'm an art fan, and this was just my way of trying to make sure artists were seen.
Now, you've used the word scene and scene in two different ways here. And the first time you said scene, I thought you said zine, which to me, that's what 1120 Press is. It's
I would
zine.
agree with that.
It very much reminds me of the old school punk zines, skater zines. Has that feel to it, has that vibe to it. Yeah. Was that the intention, or is that just kind of how it works?
There was I don't know if it was a conscious intention to make it to replicate that zine feel, but there was a look I was going for, So I would probably agree with you.
Well, and I would say focusing on punk and punk adjacent genres, like you do, really lends itself to that format. Yeah.
And I kept through my brother, who actually, he's a few years younger than me. We're both in our 50s, but he still puts zines out. All right. And his, I'm always impressed by his physical zines, and he has let me work with him on a few of those. So I've kept my hand in that world. Yeah.
All right. So you started 1120 in 2023.
2020. Yeah, 2023. You're right. You know better than I do.
It says the only reason I know is because I try to do a little bit of research before people get here, so I know a little bit about them. Otherwise, it'd be like, so Julie.
Yeah. So actually, 1120 Press started as a publishing house for authors.
Gotcha.
Because the publishing industry changed, and it went from. I'm kind of convinced that if Norman Mailer and J.D. Salinger were getting their start now, we would never hear from them.
Oh, no.
Because publishers now are controlled by conglomerates who want books by Jerry Seinfeld and, entertainers and reality stars. And so a lot of independent authors have to go the self-publishing route, and self-publishing companies rip writers off because they know writers are desperate and will spend more money than they should.
Sure. There's a lot of parallels between publishing and producing albums.
Right.
Because now anybody can do it, which is great and not great.
Right.
And it is. I really feel like it's easier than ever to make a CD and have it physically made and put it out there to be bought. But the process is almost too easy, and so as a result, how do I put this? Things that we should want to hear get drowned out by crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the same with publishing.
Right, and the thing with publishing too is self-publishing companies, they prey on authors, and it's not easy, to produce a CD, to produce 30 CDs, it might cost $80.
Mm-hmm.
To produce 30 books, you're over $1,000.
Right.
Not everybody can afford that.
Sure.
So self-publishers would rake writers over the coals. They knew writers are desperate. So I started 1120 Press originally as a publishing house where I would publish writers, so they wouldn't have to spend a cent publishing their own work.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's the way it should be. And it went okay, but it didn't really meet my hopes. There were a lot of writers that wouldn't take part in their own promotion, which is essential. So I had halted it for a while, but I kept the URL for the website. And when I moved to Buffalo, I just kind of recast 1120 Press as a music magazine.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So now I started All Western New York Radio so long ago that I almost forget the process by which I started. But not obviously, I would imagine that when you first started, you kind of had to get out there and introduce yourself to people and really kind of make the rounds. Now, you seem like a pretty extroverted, personable guy, but did you have any difficulty with that?
Absolutely not. And one of the reasons is because people in Buffalo are cool.
I couldn't agree more.
Everyone in the scene, no matter the genre, just really welcomed me, cooperative. I walked into Gutter Pop Comics on Hurdle Avenue and got talking to Stephen Floyd, who's the owner of the shop. Turns out he's a musician, too, and one of the best bands in Buffalo.
I do feel like most people in Buffalo are musicians somehow or another.
He's in a band called Personal Style, which is actually one of my favorite bands in Buffalo. I didn't even know that he was in it. Great punk band. But I was telling him, I got to talking to him, and I was telling him my plan. And he just took it upon him. He said, I'm telling him my plan about what I want to start this magazine, 1120 Press. He's like, hold on a minute. He walks in his back room. He comes back out. He's got a stack in his hands of contact this person, do a story on this person. And that got the ball rolling. And some of the people he suggested became good friends, very helpful, and it just built from there.
Sure.
So one of the people he introduced me to was a guy by the name of Andrew Burgess, he's actually a professor of rhetoric at UB.
Okay.
But he's a comic book artist, an author, and I reached out to him because his work really struck me, and it turned out he was the bass player as well in Skyway. And
they were on the show last week. Or the week before?
They're great people. They're some of the nicest people that I've met in Buffalo. And from there I've just built relationships. As a matter of fact, Andrew, for my own band, I'm in a band called the Sneers, and he's done a lot of the artwork for our EP covers. So it's all relationship building. Right. And from being a journalist, and I spent my whole career being unwelcome, and you have to get used to that. So that's how I just worked my way into the scene, and everybody was welcoming. And
so you mentioned relationship building, and then being a journalist, and I don't think anything of this myself as having been a journalist for the majority of my life, but it is almost inherent that we make contacts with people. I meet someone, I get their name, I get their phone number. Maybe I get some more information. Maybe I add that in later. But my phone is just my. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a couple years ago, and I don't remember what it was, but a name had come up on my phone, and it was the phone. Like somebody had called me, and it was their full name. Right. And he was blown away by this. Like, why would you have somebody's full name? And I don't remember what the person's name was, but let's say it was David. And I'm like, because I have 17 Davids in my phone. Like, of course, like I need to have their. And he's like, why do you have so many contacts? And it's just what it is. Yeah. And so, as a journalist, you get used to making these contacts, and it's not so scary to talk to people. Yeah. So I would have to imagine that your background as a journalist, and obviously you're still doing journalism, but it's a different scene that I'm sure you're used to. I did politics. Politics was my main thing. I love politics. Yeah. I would still write politics as much as I could, if I had the time to. But, I call a politician, they might not return my phone call. I call the drummer from a band, they're probably going to get back to me. Yeah, yeah. So it's easier in a way. But at the same time, it can also be scarier because it's a different animal. Yeah, I throughout my career I covered everything. I was a crime reporter, I was an education reporter, I was a military reporter. I covered politics for a long time. I was based at the state capitol in Albany in the press room, and I covered the Pataki administration, the state legislature, and I covered a little bit of Spitzer when he was governor, and I covered a little bit of Patterson when he was governor. So I forgot David Patterson. Yeah, that's probably one of the Davids in my phone. In all honesty. Yeah. So whenever I was feeling burned out, my editors would always let me. I'm a big hockey fan, so they would let me cover hockey. I would also, just to keep fresh, I would do a lot of music writing. Just to step away from whatever beat I was covering at the time and rejuvenate myself. And music writing was something I don't know. It felt natural. As a matter of fact, there was a
former A&R guy for one of the major record labels. When I was living in the Adirondacks, he was with one of the major record labels in New York City, and he had a place up in Saranac Lake. And he took notice of some music writing I did, and I ended up doing side work for him because he was working with emerging artists. Mm-hmm. And so, music writing has always been kind of in my back pocket in some way.
Gotcha. Now, it's not just you. You got like a whole cadre. You got a team of people writing concert reviews and CD reviews and their thoughts on, whatever. How'd that happen?
Some people approached me. Some people I took notice of and approached them. Some people have worked out. Some people haven't.
Sure.
And that's life. But yeah, and everyone that and I do pay people. I have an organized labor background, and I just believe in paying people for their time and their work, and I wouldn't feel right about not doing that. I wish I could pay people more, but I do pay them, and it's just, and they're all really enthusiastic. They love the scene. They believe in the mission, and so they're really enthusiastic. They're young kids, and they're just their contributions are very appreciated. Sometimes it ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's just me,
right?
And then the staff gets replenished. But some people approach me, and my attitude is, let's give them a shot.
Sure. So 5 years ago, my way of life, most people's ways of lives, significantly changed. COVID changed all Western New York. We basically went from, a website that featured your local news to a website that featured COVID death numbers and pretty much nothing else because nothing else was going on. And then in the post-COVID world, it has been difficult to get back to what we used to do. Just like it's been difficult for stores to go back to being 24/7, and it's been difficult for so many things. Do you think that you have an advantage, not necessarily over other people, but over what could have been because you started in a post-pandemic world? Have you thought about that at all, or is this the stupidest question you've ever heard?
It's a very good question. I haven't thought of the question in those terms, but I've thought of this subject a lot. And I've actually thought about putting out if not a special edition, a piece about this, because what I've noticed is it seems like I started 1120 Press at a time when artists were coming out of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And they spent the pandemic holed up and working. And there was a period where once the world started returning to normal, they had all this music to release.
Sure.
And, it was just right place, right time. And even today, 2025, a couple years removed from the shutdown, there's still artists talking about how the pandemic impacted their writing and their work. And so, I've noticed that was a really weird time, and it was a bleak time, and people didn't know how to act. But what it did, it produced a lot of art. And there's a lot that is still coming out from that time, and because that's happening, there's a lot to write about. I've talked to some people. I've thought about this too recently. I've talked to some people about how after the pandemic, people were just so desperate to get out of their homes that they started attending shows again.
Right.
That is the troubling part for me because it seems to be waning a little bit. And I go to a lot of shows.
Right.
I go, number one, as a music fan.
Sure.
Sometimes I go as a photographer. Sometimes I go to support people that I have relationships with. So I go to a lot of shows. And there's too many shows in Buffalo that are empty.
I would agree.
And it's unfortunate. And there's too many talented artists who are just playing for the other bands on the bill. I went to a show the other night,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a fantastic show. The music was amazing. The room was spectacular. And it was just me and one of the artist's fathers
Wow.
in the room. And I don't know. You know, people need to appreciate what they have here. You know, and so that part of the, oh my God, I got to leave the house and go see a show, that seems to be wearing off, unfortunately.
Right.
Except, you know, and there's the one exception to every rule we're going to talk about is the Buffalo's hardcore scene, which is just packed.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different animal because there's a multi-generational facet to that scene where people who were in their 20s and in bands or fans of that music in Buffalo, they have always stayed in that scene. And now their kids are in their late teens, early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to shows with their parents.
Right.
And a lot of them are starting their own bands. And one of the cool things in that scene is some of the veterans who are in their late 40s and early 50s are starting bands with some of the newcomers who are in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that scene, people in that scene stay true to it, and it's intergenerational. And that's the one exception to the rule, I think, in Buffalo.
You mentioned with the pandemic that it gave bands something to say. When Skyway was here, I joked with them, and I don't want to get too political, but in 2016, when we elected Trump, I jokingly said, well, at least we'll have some good punk music for the next few years. And then we didn't. And I was mad about that. And I said that to Skyway. And now, they said that, you know, when he got reelected, they immediately wrote a song about it. That said, you deal with punk bands a lot more than I do. Do you feel that punk music is still saying something like it was when we were younger?
No, I don't. There are bands doing it. It's funny, you know, an offshoot of 1120 Press was I've started an indie record label called 1120 Records. And
great name.
And Skyway is on it.
Right.
And so is Pretty Good State University. And both of them have written political songs.
Right.
Since especially since the second Trump administration.
See, to me, growing up, when we grew up, we're basically the same age. Punk music was political.
Yeah.
And it got away. Politics got verboten. People just, no matter what it was, they wanted to stay away from politics, and that included punk music. And I thought it would get back to. Anyway, I cut you off. You were saying brilliant things.
Number one, I think you're exactly right. I think when you and I were growing up, one of the reasons punk music was so political was there was always that cloud hanging over our head of nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing that is bringing punk music, bringing politics back to punk music, is war, Gaza. A lot of people in the punk scene are very tuned in to Gaza.
Uh-huh.
They might not be. I think their attitude toward Trump isn't any necessarily different than their attitude toward the Democratic Party. They're fed up with everyone, so they've kind of written politicians off. But they're very attuned to Gaza and what's happening in the Middle East, and that's igniting a lot of that's injecting a lot of politics back into punk, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
So, but you know, there are people who are just at their wits' end about what's happening with the Trump administration, and as I said, you know, Skyway and Pretty Good State University have written songs about Trump. So,
gotcha. Now, backing up just a little bit, you said you pay your people, which is awesome. I don't remember seeing ads on the website. Do you have a revenue stream, or is this
I
just
don't.
So much like myself, this is just an expensive hobby for you.
Yeah, it's a very expensive hobby. I'm very good between this and my record label. I'm very good at losing money.
Yeah.
But
family's got to love that.
Yeah, you know.
Gee, Dad, it wasn't bad enough when you were just getting paid shit. Now you're actually losing.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, we talked a little bit about this before the show, but you know, our kids, my kids are grown, so
right.
That's, you know, it's weird. You know, even though I didn't get a raise technically when my kids kind of fell off my budget, felt like I got a raise.
Oh yeah. Oh, I understand that. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't have any. There's no revenue stream really.
Yeah, when my oldest graduated college, now I didn't directly pay for her college, but she did come to me on a somewhat regular basis and say, "Hey, Dad, can I have, money for this or money for that, or give a couple $1,000s for this?" And then once she graduated college and moved, and she's now engaged, she has stopped asking me for money, and it's very liberating.
Isn't it amazing?
Very liberating.
It's just it's funny how that works. Like there was no like deadline in a calendar or anything like that. They just stopped asking for money at some point.
And then on top of that, not this past Christmas, but the Christmas before, do you collect Legos?
No, I don't.
Have you ever collected?
No.
Do you have any expensive collection?
Music, probably.
All right.
Yeah.
So I love Legos. I wouldn't say that I collect them per se, but I like to get Legos. Well, a couple of years ago, she got me the Lego Batcave, which is a $400 Lego set. My oldest daughter got me for Christmas, and I'm like, where did you get all this money?
Yeah. I'm seeing that with my daughter. My daughter's a great gift giver, and she's doing very well for herself, and she spends money on me now. Yeah. I like that. Every now and then she'll take me out to dinner.
All right.
And my wife will always say, "You pay, Matt, you pay." And I'm like, let her get it.
We went, my now wife, then girlfriend, went down, my oldest lives in Maryland, and we went to Maryland a couple Thanksgivings ago for dinner. And we went out to one of those all-you-can-eat meat places where they bring the meat to your blood, like Texas de Brazil. It's like $100 a person.
Right.
And I was going to get it, and my oldest daughter's like, "No, we got it." I'm like, "I'm not going to fight you."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she's a lawyer. She makes good money.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not going to fight her.
There you go.
You want to take, all right.
Yeah, I wanted to just go back to the people in Buffalo, going back to your question about injecting myself into the scene when I first got here and how helpful they were in helping me get 1120 Press off the ground. The same thing happened when I explored getting this record label off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Was there's a lot of bridge people in the Buffalo scene. And what I mean by bridge people is just people who seem to know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And, this guy? Well, here, I can put you in touch with this guy. Like, there's people like Joe Kent, who's I consider a bridge guy.
All right.
Really nice guy to talk to.
Never met him. Joe Kent, Think So, Joe. His show will be on tomorrow at 6 p.m.
People like Mike Jeffers, he's a Buffalo school teacher, but he's been a drummer in 100 bands in Buffalo over the last 30 years. Great guy. People like Roger Bryan and Torsten from Triple Hammer Records. These guys have been around forever. They know everybody. And you can approach them about things, and they will help you. And a lot of these guys have record labels, you know. And so, they always took the time to answer questions that I had and let me reach out to them at like all hours of the night and drop in their DMs with weird questions, and they were always very patient. And whether it was getting 1120 Press off the ground or getting 1120 Records off the ground, just nothing but helpful. And I've tried to return that. I have a lot of people now who reach out to me for things. And, I really believe in the community aspect of punk rock and do-it-yourself, that do-it-yourself ethos. I'm a purist when it comes to punk, because I believe in the ethos and I believe in the community, and that exists here in Buffalo.
I think that there's something in many Buffalo musicians that, I don't know if it's a lack of ego or if it's just a genuine desire to help. But I feel like in a lot of industries, or maybe even in other places, you ask somebody for help and they're like, "Well, I can't help you because you might then get ahead of me." And there are some exceptions, obviously. But generally speaking, I don't feel like that exists in our music scene. I feel like most musicians that I have had the pleasure of dealing with will literally help any other musician in any other band for any reason, even if it means that that other band is going to become more popular than their band. And I think maybe one of the reasons is the scene itself is very incestuous.
Yeah.
And, drummer from band A is going to end up playing for 4 other bands in the next 5 years. And so it's as though the entire scene, cross genres, is just one big collaboration.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to make it too kumbaya, because there are a number of a number of takers. But I think generally speaking, and you find the good people in anything you do, and they all realize that even if it's not a genre that they're interested in, they will help people because they've gone through the same experiences. They all, everyone's fighting the same challenges.
Right.
And, so I think they come from that place, and they are willing to help, and there's a lot of talented people who are associated with the music scene that are, I call them content creators, like photographers and people who have publications and I'm working right now with a guy named Thane McGarry from Shepherd Moon Studios, extraordinarily talented cinematographer who shoots a lot of shows. His work is top notch. I mean, and so I approached him 6 months ago because I was always interested in doing a documentary on Virus X. So we've been working on this documentary that should be out in September, but there's a lot of people to collaborate with in this scene as well. And so I'm just, I'm interested in helping and shining a light on the scene in more ways just through 1120 Press, because there's so much here.
Right.
There's just so much here. And I tend to, I came to 1120 Press with 30 years of journalism experience already. So I'm not a dude hanging out in his mom's basement,
right,
keyboard warrior. I do bring some expertise to this, and I just think that the scene deserves and the artists deserve attention. So
that perfectly segues to my next natural question. Where do you see this going from here?
My goal is just to make sure it lives past me. I want to find someone who, when I'm ready to step away, just comes in and takes it over.
Right.
I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to okay, this was here, now I'm tired or whatever, and I'm going to close it down. I want to find someone who will carry it on.
Understood.
Yeah.
So, what's that timeline?
Sometimes I think it's tomorrow. Sometimes I think it's 5 years from now.
But 5 years is the long end.
I don't know. I'm going to be 58, so I keep wondering to myself, even if I live to 80, how many good, it's when age starts creeping up in and you start questioning, okay, how long can I do this? How long can I do that? How long do I want to do this? How long do I want to do that? I do know I don't have the answers to any of that, except that I know I want this to live on in some way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Matt Smith, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, and
anything
thanks for finally
meeting me. That I didn't ask you about, or?
I don't think so. No. I just hope people go and support shows and not just genres they're into, but check other things out, because there's amazing, talented folk artists and songwriters and, indie artists and shoegaze artists and jazz artists and not just punk artists and not just hardcore artists. And, Buffalo has everything.
It does.
So, you have to appreciate it.
It does. So. All right. Matt Smith, 1120 Press, here on Here's the Thing with me, Scott Leffler. We're going to take a break and play some music. When we come back, we'll have Andrew McGrath in studio. You're listening to Here's the Thing on All Western New York Radio. You're listening to All Western New York Radio, home of the Think So Joe Show, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Tune in or miss out.
Ladies and gentlemen, today the role of Scott Leffler will be played by Captain Crunch.
Joining us in studio, as always, Andrew McGrath, here to talk about sports and whatever else comes up. Drew, what's going on, man?
Not much.
So, sports-wise, there really isn't a lot going on, so we're just going to continue to talk about other things. Although I do know that since the last time you were on, you've been to a couple of baseball games that I was not able to go to. How are the Americans looking?
So it's hit or miss. Yeah. So I looked it up. So it's like basically this league that they're in. It's like they're not affiliated with any pro team or anything like that. It's just an opportunity for kids that still have
It's a development league.
Basically, yeah. So they still have to have college eligibility left.
All right.
In order to be able to play in this league.
I did not know that, but that makes sense because in the program or on the website it does mention. I think it mentions a college for every player, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's basically it's a college, all college kids.
But I mean, I've only been to the one game so far, and they had not gelled by that point, but they did go like 7-0 before losing a couple.
Yeah, I think it was they were 6-0, and then they lost. I think 1 or 2. But they're like 7-3 now or something like that.
But are they looking more like a team?
Yeah, there's always there's still like a lot of walks. Occasional errors here and there, but other than that, yeah, they look all right.
Fun experience.
It depends. Sometimes the music is really good in between innings or between like a batter or something like that. Other times it's like not, and then it's like kind of like okay, let's
Are
get
they
the
still
game
doing
going.
like the school kids and stuff like that in between innings when you play music?
Sometimes, yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was just like an opening night thing or
So they had like little kids do the national anthem from some elementary schools, and they've had a couple of dance teams there. So
you gotta keep your hands still. You keep knocking the table, and it's gonna pick it up every time.
You should talk to them with my hands.
We'll talk with them in the air and not on the table. So I know the Americans have a game Wednesday. You had mentioned that it's dollar hot dog night.
Yeah.
So. Gonna load up on hot dogs?
No, I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Have you gotten the nachos?
No.
I know that the game that we went to together, I got the $14 extra awesome nachos, and I barely ate like half of them. It lasted the whole game.
Yeah.
And,
So the regular one
hanging up on the wall the other.
Yeah, the regular one in that helmet that you have on the wall is actually $12.
All right.
So it would have been just $2 extra.
Because the hat itself is $10. So you throw the nacho, and then you don't have to clean it.
Right.
Because I had to wash it a lot because it was filled with nacho cheese. So.
Yeah.
Other sports, I know that the Stanley Cup playoffs continue and the NBA Stanley Cup champions
finals
continue, and the NBA championship continues.
Yep.
I really haven't watched.
Florida's up 3-2.
Right.
And I think it's 2-2 in the NBA finals, and I believe they play tonight.
Now we've talked about a bunch of different sports. We've never really talked about basketball. Do you like basketball?
It depends. A lot. Basketball's changed a lot.
Right.
Basketball's probably changed the most.
One of the reasons I have a hard time getting into basketball is it seems like there's a lot of flopping. It seems like you can't touch anyone, and if you do, that's an automatic foul. And it almost seems like a non-contact sport at times, and I like some contact in my sport.
Well, they have been refereeing the playoffs differently. They've been allowing more contact. Yeah, more physicality.
And then the other thing that I have trouble with the NBA specifically is they seem to allow the players to take 7 or 8 steps before they call it a walk.
Yeah.
And
there's this what's called a Euro step, and it's a walking travel.
Yeah, I remember, in elementary school or whatever, when we learned basketball,
right.
I learned that you weren't allowed to walk with the ball unless you were dribbling it, and that just doesn't seem to be a thing anymore.
Yeah, and it's like you can't change pivot foot back then, but now you can. Yeah, it's weird. But, like, yeah, it's all right. Like, it's going to be the first time either, like, the Indiana Pacers will win the championship or the Oklahoma...
Ever?
Yes. Or the Oklahoma City franchise itself, just under Oklahoma City would. But Oklahoma City used to be the Seattle Supersonics, and they won one in the 70s.
Gotcha. So then Seattle moved to Oklahoma City, and now they are the Thunder.
Yes.
They're one of the few leagues, or they're one of the few teams in any league that's not that doesn't end with an S. Almost all teams end with S's.
Yeah, there's like 4. I think there's like 4 or 5 in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know. So we got the Thunder, we got the Lightning, and the NHL that doesn't end with an S. There's others, obviously,
Right.
but most teams end with S's. Just a fun fact brought to you on Here's the Thing.
Right. Yeah. So there was a recent trade in baseball. It was a blockbuster trade.
All right.
So the Red Sox.
Baseball is really Drew's sport. This is the one he gets excited about.
The Red Sox just swept the Yankees this weekend.
All right.
They've taken 5 out of 6 from them so far this year, which good. I'm glad. I'm happy with that. I can care less if we make the playoffs as long as we beat the heck out of the Yankees. That's fine. I'm good with that.
He says we as though he is a member of the Red Sox.
Red Sox Nation. But
I hate the Red Sox just as much as I hate the Yankees. Go Nats.
But yeah. So Rafael Devers was the best player on the Red Sox. Well, he just got traded. There was a thing where they signed a guy to play third base. He was the third baseman. He didn't want to move positions or anything like that. And then he just got right after the Yankees game on Sunday, he got traded. Yeah, so it was like craziness. So like it's been him and like Mookie Betts that now plays for the Dodgers have been like 2 franchise players that they've traded recently.
Interesting.
Yeah, ownership has been really haven't shown like a real plan of what they're trying to do or anything like over the last 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. And then I had a breaking news earlier that the College Baseball World Series is going on.
Uh-huh.
And
somebody threw a no-hitter, right?
yeah, it was just Arkansas's Gage Wood throws 3rd no-hitter in College World Series history, striking out 19.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, any no-hitter is cool, but when you get a no-hitter in in an important game, that's huge.
Right, and considering college baseball's been around forever,
right.
To only have 3 no-hitters is crazy.
No doubt.
But good for him, and especially one with 19 strikeouts. That's 19 strikeouts is a lot just in a regular game.
Sure.
A regular game, that's not even a no-hitter. So yeah.
Probably threw 120 pitches, right?
I don't know. It didn't say. I didn't read the story.
Oh. Well, you figure 19 strikeouts. There's 60 pitches right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So he probably was like 100, 110.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it for sports. Obviously, the Bills continue to do their thing, but there's not much going on at One Bills Drive.
No. So they're now off until training camp.
Right.
Which is, I think, mid-July sometime.
And we had talked about the whole James Cook thing. Most people seem to be optimistic that everything is going to work out. I'm still on the fence about it, but I don't know. At least he did show up.
Yeah, he'll play through this year, but we don't really have the financial room to be able to sign him this year. Because if we do any sort of extension or whatever, it would affect future years. But if there's any money that would tie into it this year, we don't have it. So
now, when you say financial room, obviously we're talking about salary cap. Are you a salary cap fan?
It's just so much that goes into it. It's just hard to keep track of it.
I think that's my biggest problem with the salary cap is there's so many little loopholes and ways to get around things. It's just if it were a hard and fast salary cap, I think that it would make things more even. But the bigger teams still have advantages because they can do other little things that the smaller teams might not have the ability.
So
not that
it is a hard
small
cap.
Team, but
it is a hard cap. You can't go over it. No matter at any point, you can't go over it no matter what during the season. You got from league year to league year, you got to be under it.
What about signing bonuses?
Okay, so signing bonuses are different. You can
that's my point.
Right?
Though.
Yeah.
There's little loopholes that so you can throw somebody a signing bonus that doesn't count towards the salary cap.
Well,
Now,
so you could designate part of it towards the salary cap,
right?
But part of it not. But like, basically,
I realize that there's dangers in there because you pay somebody a $40 million signing bonus and then they're out the next year. You're out that $40 million. So there are inherent dangers to it, but it's less dangerous for a team that makes billions of dollars. It's less dangerous for the Dallas Cowboys, for example, than it is for the Buffalo Bills because the Dallas Cowboys make so much money through, just apparel. I mean, I think the Dallas Cowboys is still one of the top-selling.
They're the number one sports franchise in net worth in the world. So,
because of that, they can take risks that the Cleveland Browns can't take.
Yeah, so they can do all the so basically your signing bonus is all guaranteed money up front that you get right away when you sign. So, a lot of that is part of the guaranteed money.
So then if you do a large signing bonus, all right, so we're going to pay you $60 million over 3 years, but we're going to give you $40 million of it as a signing bonus, which means that we're really only paying, it's only a $7 million a year hit to the cap, which means that we can get another guy that somebody else might, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the theory.
Yeah.
Just like U.S. tax codes, I feel like there's just too many loopholes that allow the ultra-wealthy to do things that the smaller market people can't.
Yeah, and then there's all the whole thing with escrow and everything. Yeah, it's like there's so much into it.
Yeah.
All
right, that's it for sports. Let's move on.
Let's do it.
All right. So I was home for the weekend. Actually, I was here in the office on Saturday for the first interview of today's show, Matt Smith, and then I went home and hung out. We went and did some shopping. We just had a patio poured outside of the back of our house, and now that we have this very large concrete patio, it's beautiful, by the way, poured, my wife wants to load it up with furniture. She's got this weird thing for chairs. I don't know what it is. Like every time, we have more chairs than any other two houses in the world, basically. So we're looking for patio furniture and just other patio type things. Now earlier this year, we had built a bar in our sunroom, and for the wedding, we loaded that bar up with a bunch of bottles of alcohol and so much beer, just so much beer. So my wife's father, my new father-in-law, was kind enough to buy the beer for our wedding. Cases and cases and cases of it. Unfortunately, it's Blue Light and Budweiser and Yuengling. Yuengling is like the most exciting of the beers that he bought. Now, we overestimated the amount that people were going to drink at the wedding. And I think one of the reasons that we did that is because we counted you in for a case of beer, and then you didn't drink anything.
Yeah.
So we've got at least one case of beer left over that we didn't plan on having. Actually, so in all honesty, joking aside, we've probably got 3 full cases of beer plus an entire fridge full of cans of beer. So I would say we've probably got, 200 cans of beer in the fridge. And we keep inviting people over.
Just try to get rid of it?
Exactly. So we had a game night so that people would come and drink the beer, and they did. But I feel like we didn't even make a dent in it. I don't know. I'm thinking about just bringing some of it here and swapping out the coffee that I normally drink with beer because I don't think that we're ever going to get rid of it. We had this problem a couple of years ago with Super Bowl and ended up having the Super Bowl beer. I finally finished in October.
Yeah.
And I think the wedding beer we're gonna finally finish sometime after our second anniversary. Because there's so, and I don't hate domestic beers, but they certainly don't excite me. I'm thinking what I might do is I might invest in Country Time lemonade. Just get a ton of it, and just make everything the shanties. Yeah. Because that's a good way. And it's really refreshing in the summer. Because I am telling you this, it's not stupid hot out there. It's apparently 77 degrees right now, according to Robbie Takak. Sorry, my TV in the office, it cycles pictures, and I've got a photo of Robbie from Music Is Art a couple years ago on a bicycle riding around taking pictures. and under it is the weather. So it's 77 degrees, which isn't horrible. But I'm sweating my ass off.
It's humid today.
Yeah, I don't know. So today would be a good day for half beer and half lemonade.
Yeah, shandies. Yeah, shandies are nice, especially like if you get like a good one that's like really cold. Like,
but swap out the lemonade for limeade, and I think I'm even more into it.
So they did. I know they did have like Bud Light lime ones, and
honestly, I like all the lime beers.
Those
like,
margarita. What was it? The margarita ones and stuff like that.
So I don't care for Bud Light, but I do like Bud Light lime. I don't know. It's just the little hint of lime. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Today's show brought to you by beer. So anyway, long story short is my wife and I were talking the other day. We're like, we've got to have another game night so that we can get people over to continue to drink the beer, or else it's just
4th of July.
So 4th of July, we usually go to her aunt and uncle have a couple cottages up in like the Lindenville area, and we usually go there. But we could just bring a bunch of beer with us and then leave it there.
That's what I'm saying.
We'll like bring a whole case and then we'll just leave. That's what we should do.
Get a couple coolers.
All
get a couple coolers. Put some in the coolers.
But the styrofoam coolers, so we can just leave them there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get those styrofoam coolers at Rite Aid or whatever, and just fill them with beer and just take. So here's the thing. If you need somebody to come to a party and you would like them to bring beer, invite me. I'm in. I like to party and I can bring beer. There you go.
You can supply the whole party with beer.
Yeah. So.
Hey, side gig.
I think there's like a liquor authority that doesn't allow for that. All right, sticking with the alcohol theme, we have mentioned before the River Pub. Billy and Kelly Jones, friends of ours, had introduced us to an alcohol called Shanky's Whip. Did you see the Facebook post that I think it was Kelly posted of their big emu?
Yes.
Yeah. So apparently if you buy 12 bottles of the Shanky's Whip, they send you like a life-size, not a real emu, but like a stuffed emu. And they must have done that because they now have a mascot at the bar, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen the pictures. It was cool.
I talked to Billy about potentially sponsoring All Western New York. Actually, been reaching out to a number of different people, trying to get more sponsorship for the website. Not necessarily the show, although if you would like to sponsor the show, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and we could talk about it. But I am constantly looking for advertising for the website. And so All Western New York Radio is 19 plus years old. And I've never really focused on getting advertising for it. It's just always been something that I've done, I've paid for. It's
just a project.
It's as I tell people,
passion project.
It is an expensive hobby. But I'm trying to get advertisers, and one of the people that I had reached out to was Billy and Kelly. So
okay,
we'll see.
that's cool.
We may get ads from the River Pub soon. Also reached out to Buck. Actually, this is really weird.
Oh, for Buck's Pizza?
Buck's Pizza on Pierce Avenue, the Prince of Pierce. One, love Buck's Pizza. Two, Buck is just a solid dude.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
So I had written like some stuff on business cards and was going to drop one off to Buck at Buck's.
Okay.
But prior to doing that, I was out doing some running, and I went to Panera because I've got the Panera Sip Club thing, which is if you drink coffee or if you drink anything at all, the Panera Sip Club is $99 a year. And you can get a drink every 2 hours. So you can get a coffee every 2 hours, every day, for basically $8 a month. That's like the cost of 2 coffees at Tim Hortons. Anyway, So I had gone to Panera, and isn't Buck there?
Wow.
I'm like, dude, what? I've never seen him there. It was really like, and then I saw him there like 2 days later. I had never seen Buck at Panera before. And I do run into people at Panera quite frequently. A lot of people just kind of hang out at Panera. They sit there, they drink their coffee, they doom scroll on their phones or do some work on their laptops or whatever. But yeah, I run into people at Panera a lot.
Okay.
What about you? That was I know I just ranted there and went on several I don't know.
Yeah, I'll see people occasionally, going to these games though. So not really like. It's weird though. Like you would figure like you would see people like that you would normally see.
Right.
But no, it's like all the only people that are like seeing frequently is just the staff, and that's it. Like,
has the mayor been back?
No,
just the one game.
Yeah.
All right. We had run into the mayor at the first game. So, obviously, because it is a minor league team, it is going to be kind of difficult to get people excited about it.
Yeah.
But we're trying. We're trying here at All West New York. We keep posting the stories of the games, some photos, some interesting facts and what have you.
Yeah, I've seen I think the last 3-4 games I've checked, the attendance has been that they say has been 1,100, but I don't know how they're maybe ticket sales, but and not counting season tickets or something.
I don't know.
But I'm not really seeing 1,100 in the stands.
I had seen. Who did we play Sunday? Who did we play Sunday? Geneva?
Yes.
And according to their website, because I was looking for more information on the games, they had...
Or was it
Elmira? The Elmira Pioneers, yeah. So according to Elmira's website, for the game that we played in Elmira, their attendance was 1,988. And I thought to myself, wow, that's a ton for, a minor league.
Yeah, Batavia's one is, that one's pretty... I think it's Dwyer Stadium. I think is
the Muck Dogs do have a pretty good following. In fact, I'm almost surprised that the Muck Dogs aren't in a bigger league because I've heard of them. You know what I mean? And all the way from Batavia, they do have a good following. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because they were part of the Phillies organization for a while.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Well, that'll do it. I do know that. So my wife is a band teacher. And the Muck Dogs have gotten a hold of her on a few occasions to see if she will bring her students to perform at the games.
Oh, okay.
And, so she teaches 5th grade band, and it's probably not the best idea.
Maybe Niagara Falls.
5th grade band's not typically very good.
Yeah, so maybe Niagara Falls.
Yeah. I don't know. I do know that the Niagara Falls band plays here. But, I don't know. Excuse me. I started rewatching, and I don't think you've seen it, and you really should. I started rewatching Ted Lasso the other day. You've not seen Ted Lasso,
I've never
right?
seen it, no. I know what it is, though.
So, it's a fun show. It's an emotional roller coaster. It's a comedy, but they hit you in the feels sometimes.
Gotcha.
It's the same people that did Scrubs. Did you ever watch Scrubs?
Occasionally.
See, Scrubs was funny, but every once in a while there was an episode that just was a gut check. And Ted Lasso's kind of the same. A lot of people, when you talk about Ted Lasso, they're like, well, I'm not really into soccer. Which sounds like a reasonable, answer. But then these same people will watch Scrubs, and it's like, are you into hospitals?
Right.
You know what I mean? So soccer is just the backdrop of the show. Yeah. It's really a show about people. But it's that said, I have this, Drew. I have attempted to learn more about soccer or football, if you prefer, just because, well, I'm not into basketball. The Sabres are horrible. And actually, the main reason is because this past season...
You adopted a team, right?
I did. I started rooting for Arsenal. And one of the main reasons is because I really thought that the Bills were going to have a shit year. And I thought, well, let me root for one team that might have a chance of winning something. And so I decided that I would find a Premier League football club and root for them just to give me some joy in my life. Because I thought the Bills were going to go 9-7 or 9-8 or yeah. But then the Bills ended up having a decent year. So and Arsenal also had a decent year. So that's good too.
Yeah. So our stadium's modeled after Tottenham.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the new stadium.
I want to actually see the full concept of in the air of like an aerial view,
Right.
When it's actually fully done. I want to see like what that looks like, and then like the actual rendering itself, of like
To me-
inside outside.
To me, it kind of looks like a toilet bowl. Doesn't it kind of look like a toilet bowl?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's got the big hole in the middle. Yeah.
And you know, obviously all stadiums are basically the same shape. It's basically an oval, but because of the way it has the upper ridge around it, it
Yeah.
just, I don't know. But
Yeah.
hopefully that's not a sign of how the play is going to be.
Yeah. So not this season. Next season will be that. Yeah. So 2026
Right.
season.
And I'm still not going to go to the games.
Oh, I'm not paying for private seat licensing.
Yeah.
I'm not paying $5,000 just to be on a list. No, that's stupid.
Really depends on the list.
Well, to get a seat at a sporting event.
I'm just saying that there are some lists that it might be worth paying $5,000 to get on the list.
I don't know. Well, okay. So wait, what kind of financial stability would you have to be able to say that is worth an investment?
All right. More financial stability than either of us have.
Right. So what do you think would be an amount that you would say that you would be comfortable, like if you were at whatever financial range?
So again, it really depends on the list. But let's say you make six figures, $100,000 a year.
So for a $5,000.
You could potentially throw out $5,000 to get on a list for something. I don't, maybe not Bills tickets, but something else. I don't know.
Okay, so with the economy and everything like that, I think it
In
would
this
be
economy?
Yeah, I think it would have to be like probably closer to like almost like maybe 250,000 probably,
Yeah.
because now after with the taxes and all that type of stuff that you're going to lose from.
Right. No, understood.
Yeah.
Speaking of the economy, how's the job hunt going?
Somebody reached out to me today about a potential job, so there's phone call tomorrow on a screening. So see how it goes, and keep fingers crossed.
Now, remind our listeners, if I recall correctly, you have no discernible skills. Is that correct?
Oh, wow. Sure, if you want to say that. Yeah.
All right.
Wow, that was harsh.
I need somebody to mow my lawn.
You can't afford me.
But and on that note, let's take a break. We got to play some music, pay some bills, and when we come back, we'll be talking more with Andrew and sports and not sports. You're listening to Here's the Thing on All Western New York Radio. The Niagara Falls Americans are off to a great start to their second season at Sale-Magley Stadium. With nearly 24 home games left throughout June and July, there's plenty of opportunity to catch the action. Why not see them all? Season tickets start at just $99 and are available now at NiagaraFallsAmericans.com. You're listening to All Western New York Radio. Get your news from us. Go to subscribe.allwnynews.com and sign up for our daily update.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, the role of Scott Leffler will be played by that guy from the movie you saw last week.
Welcome back to Here's the Thing, talking sports with Andrew McGrath. A couple things that I wanted to talk about that don't necessarily involve you at all, but I'm gonna include you in the conversation anyway.
Oh, how nice of you.
Well, you know, I'm giving like that. So everybody has apps on their phone, unless you're Bob Confer and have an old school flip phone that doesn't have like Android on it. But
somebody I work with has one.
Really?
Yeah.
So my friend Bob Confer, to the best of my ability, to the best of my knowledge, I should say, still has an old school flip phone.
That's from Confer Plastics?
Yeah, the president of Confer Plastics. So, but with the exception of him and apparently this person you work with, we've all got cell phones with apps on them. And on most apps, there's a thing that you can push and you can be like, remember me, so you don't have to sign in again.
Yeah.
And it works on some apps. But my banking app, for example, so I use Citizens Bank. And there's a thing that says, like, remember me, and then another thing that says, like, don't ask me to do this again.
Oh, yeah, I remember when I had Citizens, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
One, they're lies.
It was annoying. Like you had to sign in every single time
yeah,
anyway.
Like it does not remember you, and you will always have to do it again. And I have another app that does that too, and I don't remember, or like even websites that you go to, and it's like remember me, and then like don't make me sign in again, and it's just it's frustrating because the other thing that I find frustrating is I have noticed lately, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but I have noticed lately that a lot of apps now have two-factor authentication. Whether you asked for it or not, and there's no way, and I don't need two-factor authentication on my McDonald's app. If somebody wants to somebody wants to hack my McDonald's app, it's and I'm just using McDonald's as an example. But there are other apps that are, low security risks that you have to have two-factor.
I think anything that has a credit card attached to it is a good that's a good thing to have for it. But like, if it's like a game or something like that you're like that you don't have to buy anything for, or anything like really, that's kind of craziness.
It is. It's annoying. Is what it is.
Like, what's the point here? Like, just delete the app and just get it over with.
Speaking of games and phones, so a couple weeks ago, Brad Ryder was sitting where you're sitting, and so Brad Ryder, Ryder Radio. Was doing a show on WLVL in Lockport. I was a guest of his a couple weeks ago. He was a guest of mine here. Apparently now he and WLVL have decided to part ways, and he's just doing the show from his home. So Brad Ryder Radio, I think daily at 10 a.m. at RyderRadio.com. So he's just decided he's going online exclusively, and I wish Brad all the luck in the world. But he was sitting there, and we got to, and I don't remember if it was during the show or after the show, but we had a very long conversation about apps and games and what have you. I think it was after the show. And I was talking about, you know that I have this one Bricks and Balls that I've been playing for years, and it's moved from one phone to another. I'm on like level 2000 or something like that. Your phone, whenever I see you, you're pretty much on ESPN or like social media. Do you have a game that you play on your phone?
I do have game apps, games.
But do you play them?
Yeah, occasionally. It just depends, like how much time. Like if I'm like really really super bored. So I have some Keno games, cribbage, euchre, Pai-Gow.
What's Pai-Gow?
It's a form of poker.
Okay.
Yeah. So regular poker, blackjack, and I have Bejeweled and Monopoly.
Yesterday for Father's Day. My wife and I had her mother and stepfather over. And,
happy belated Father's Day to everybody.
And we played euchre. I'm a huge euchre fan. I might have to check it out on my phone. I
have cribbage too.
You mentioned cribbage, and I love cribbage as well. In both games, No, that's not true. Cribbage I learned when I was little, played with my parents. Euchre I think I learned in college.
I learned euchre. I learned euchre, spades.
No, I feel like it did. My parents did teach me euchre because my dad was a killer. My dad would he'd go alone with the left 9, and somehow my sisters and I were just talking about this the other day.
Somehow make it.
Yeah.
I hate people like that. Really.
I had a hand yesterday, and it was left ace king 9.
Okay.
And then an off king. And I thought about going alone, but I'm I don't have the right. I was afraid to do it, so I didn't.
I would have.
I really thought about it, but
just go alone because either way, you're going to get at least a point.
Yeah.
If you get to 3, so why? What's the? To me though, if you feel that if you have to think about talking yourself out of going for,
right.
you might as well just go for it.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we should do a euchre tournament.
If we could find one, yeah, that's actually real and not what the last one we did was, I'd be definitely down for it.
Drew and I enjoy euchre. I enjoy most things, but I'm not necessarily good at, frankly, anything. I'm
pretty good at euchre, but it's all based off the cards, really, that you get. You could have a skill that you apply and everything like that, and a strategy. But if you don't have the cards, it doesn't matter.
So a couple years ago, Drew and I did this euchre tournament. It's one of those things where you change partners every game, and you move around from table to table. I think there were 30 people, maybe 40. It was pretty well attended.
Yeah, it was like that.
But some of the people there just took it way too seriously, and as a result, I didn't enjoy it that much.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it got to the point where it was I was looking forward to it being over with.
Yeah, which was really a shame because not that many people play euchre. So it was nice to be hey, here's a group of people that play euchre. But when I play cards, or frankly do pretty much anything, I do it for fun. And if you get too serious about it, it's not fun anymore.
No, I can understand if it was a league or something like that,
right.
And then based off of the seeding, if it had a payout schedule or whatever, fine. But just a tournament, and then what was it It was a quarter if you got set or something like that.
I don't know. I think it was $5 to play.
Yeah, and then
the winner won $50.
Well, it's based off of so if you set say you and I were on the same team and we ordered up and we didn't get it, we would have to each pay a quarter or something like that. It was
But my point was my point was that the grand prize wasn't enough to be.
Yeah, it was I think it was $40-$50, something like that. Yeah, it wasn't.
So I don't know.
It was just it was just kind of the more and more which don't get me wrong, I'm competitive with everything too, but it was really though, it was yeah, it just kind of was all right, you know what, I'm just done with this.
Yeah, so growing up, definitely played cribbage with my folks. Did play euchre with
I played a lot of war with my grandmother.
War?
Yeah.
You're going through the cards really fast? All right, I remember that. I feel like I played that when I was really little.
War and rummy, I played with. I played with a lot of war and rummy.
You play Michigan rummy? Are you familiar with Michigan rummy?
You've explained this to me last week. I think we talked about this.
Yeah. It's a weird game. I enjoy it, but it's a weird game.
Yeah.
And then in college, played a lot of hearts and spades, which are similar games, and I honestly at the moment don't remember what's what.
Hearts is only so hearts and spades are basically similar, except for it's hearts, and then spades is the trump suit.
Right.
Yeah. But hearts, it's you basically, if you're you want to stick everybody else with the hearts, so it's lowest score wins in hearts.
All right. Yes. Anyway, we used to play it a lot in college.
Yeah.
That and spades.
Yeah.
Now,
and I play multiple versions of spades. I play the ace down.
Okay.
And I play with the jokers. Also, I play with deuces.
So, Drew and I we have a lot of similarities, but there's a large discrepancy in our ages. So we went to very different versions of high school. I am wondering what your high school experience was like, because we used to play cards in lunch and or study hall on a regular basis.
No.
You weren't able to do that.
No, we weren't even allowed to leave campus.
Well, we weren't either.
So we weren't allowed to leave campus.
A couple years before they were, but so we weren't, but we did definitely play cards. We had to do it, still had to be quiet and civil and whatnot, but they didn't care if we played cards, and we played bullshit a lot. Are you familiar with the game bullshit?
Yeah, that was more of a party drinking game that we played.
Yeah, I've never played it outside of in the Niagara Wheatfield High School cafeteria.
Yeah,
but
I used to play it at house parties and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was bullshit. It was all right. It was. It was kind of cool, the president, the vice president, the asshole. Then you have people would create new cabinets and like a secretary, a treasurer.
I feel like you're playing a different game than I am.
No. Bullshit. No.
All right, I feel like there's two. We're gonna have to talk about.
So you're like the president?
No. So bullshit. So you've got.
Oh wait.
So you got a bunch of people all sitting in a circle, and you've got aces, and then I've got twos, and threes, and fours, and you've got to say how many of whatever card you're laying down.
Right. Yeah.
And you try to get rid of other cards.
Yeah. So the versions it's bullshit. But the version we played was where you had a cabinet. So the first one that would go out was the president.
Oh.
The second one would go out would be the vice president.
Gotcha.
The last one would go out would be the asshole. They would have to deal all the cards, stuff like that.
Interesting.
The president can make the everybody else.
So it's the same game. You've got some added layers that we didn't have.
Right. Yeah. So the president can say everybody except for this person drinks,
right,
or whatever like that, or.
All right. So speaking of president, that brings me to our question of the day.
Okay.
It's my chance to ask a question. And so every week, either Drew asks me a question or I ask him a question. Last week, he asked me my 3 favorite sports movies. This week, my question to you is, all right, so there is a race for Congress. It's a political question. There's a race for Congress in your district. So the new congressman representing Niagara Falls.
Okay.
And the 2 candidates that are running are Jim Kelly and Satan. Who do you vote for? I'm just kidding. I know he's voting for Satan. That's not your real question.
I was about to say, wait, isn't it kind of the same person?
Drew has, in my opinion, an irrational hatred of Jim Kelly. Not that there aren't real good reasons to dislike the guy, but Drew's hatred is on a level. All right. So honestly, I thought of that in the car today, by the way.
Thank you. That was funny. That was good. I appreciate that.
Like you, I couldn't remember whether it was your question or my question, but I was like, well, if it's my question, I got to think about it. That was the first one that I came up with, but I was like, no, that's not a fair question. But, all right, so, actually, jumping off of your question from last week, so you talked about sports movies, and one of your favorite sports movies was Miracle.
Yeah.
True story, 1980 men's hockey Olympics.
Yeah. It was based off from a true story.
Well, so so here's my question for you this week. You have an unlimited budget.
Okay.
To make a sports movie.
Okay.
But it's got to be based on a real event.
Okay.
What would you make a movie on that there hasn't already been a movie made on? And I've actually got, in my opinion, a really good answer.
Wow.
But I would like to know, so obviously sports,
there's so many things.
There's drama, there's intrigue, sometimes sports is a great avenue for storytelling.
Right, and it's a dictator of life, too, because you get a lot of real-life situations that, and dilemmas that you got to go through in life that you face during games and stuff like that.
You want me to go first?
Sure. Yeah, because this is deep.
I want to see a feature-length movie about the Dream Team.
Okay.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. Dream Team being when the NBA players were first allowed to play at the Olympics in Olympic basketball.
I think they did a 30 for 30 on the Dream Team.
I wouldn't be surprised. 30 for 30 is kind of like mini movies.
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but now I feel like I should. I do have ESPN Plus, so I should dust that off.
I don't know if they did or not, but I think they did.
But doesn't that sound like a fun watch? No?
So it would depend. It would depend. Now, is it more of a documentary or like their experience?
Not necessarily a documentary,
or just
but the real story, or as close to it as Hollywood is going to get. Kind of like a couple years ago, they had that movie Air about the
Nike and
when Nike became Nike, basically. Right. It wasn't a documentary, but it was
per se. Yeah.
It was largely based on things that really happened.
Yeah.
I would like to see, I would like to see Air, but about the Dream Team, and largely because the cast of characters is just larger than life.
Okay, let's see. Wow. With all the sports movies that they've done like some sort of like some version of like part of the story and everything. I don't know if it was about a certain individual person or an event. That was, let's see. I think something with actually the Olympics.
That's a big topic. What do you mean?
So either Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics, and then maybe say track and field or something like that, or Carl Lewis, or how dominant Team USA's been in relays and everything throughout the years in the Summer Olympics in 1984, LA, was that?
No. 1904 Olympics marathon is what I'm Googling right now because I read an amazing story earlier about the 1904, which was the origin of the new Olympics, which took place in Greece. And I was just looking for some fun facts, which this story doesn't seem to have, but I'll try to remember some. And I would love to see a story. I would love to see a movie about this. The 1904 Olympic marathon in Greece, they were so clueless about how to do things that the 26.1 miles that they ran, they didn't have any water stations.
Oh, wow.
And so people keeled over from dehydration.
Yeah.
Because there was no water. Also, they accidentally gave, I want to say, an American runner some sort of a cocktail of vodka and rat poison and something else.
Wow.
And then there was another one who they gave psychedelic mushrooms to or something.
Yeah.
And so that dude ended up passing out in the middle of the race and still came in fourth because everyone else was keeled over from not having anything to drink, and the guy that they had given the rat poison to won.
Nice.
That's how badly organized it was.
So I actually thought about it. Okay, so the 2000 Summer Olympics that were in Sydney, Australia.
Okay.
Now those games were actually not technically. Well, they were technically in the summer, but not what we would consider summer.
Right.
It was September.
Okay. Because summer on the bottom of the globe is, the other 6 months. Or the other half is,
Right. So it was it was our tail end of summer.
Right.
And July.
And their beginning of summer.
It was, And Team USA baseball. Now, this was the last year baseball was in the Olympics in 2000, and it was Team USA won the actual gold medal.
Okay.
In that. And unless you actually follow stuff like that, no one would ever know because baseball's not an Olympic sport anymore.
Right.
So I think if someone can make a movie of that and what that entailed all the way, because of number one, to travel.
Right.
Going to Australia, that's a long flight.
So this is 25 years ago, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't remember. So when we had baseball in the Olympics, was it pros?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Because
they weren't actually pros yet. They were like they were a bunch of college kids. I think there was like maybe like one or two guys that were like had pro
because in
experience.
some sports it's okay to have pros, and in some it's not. And I've never understood why we would have an every 4-year celebration of the people who are best at something that don't get paid for it. That makes no sense to me.
Right.
Like it's the best of the non-best.
Yeah. So I think that would be something cool, because then I think that would be one thing to like with how baseball is and like with their marketing and everything like that.
Drew's a huge baseball fan. It's just it's not a thing that I've been hugely into.
Yeah, it's just the game is like at one time was like it was America's pastime, and you know, that's how it was considered, and it was very hugely popular for a long period of time.
Now, a baseball movie that I would like to watch, and maybe this movie exists, and if so, I'll try and find it. The 1919 World Series.
That was the Chicago.
Chicago White Sox.
There's two different versions of the Scandal. It's called 8 Men Out. One of them I think had John Cusack in it.
Really?
Yeah. And there was another version of it of the Chicago White Sox.
I'm not surprised that there is a movie on it, but that is definitely a baseball story that I would find.
Yeah. So well, just the whole thing of because people don't even really realize it, and you know, unless you're like I'm 40, I'm about to turn 41 in like 3 weeks. You know. Unless you're like in this age range or older, you might remember that event. Other than that, you're not going to remember it because it's never talked about. And I think that would be something to like allow people to actually recall it, remember it, and even like if they've never heard of it or read about it or anything like that, at least have that information and know about it.
Drew is the only person I know over 30, by the way, that makes a big deal out of his birthday. Drew loves his birthday. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but you're the only person of, like, genuine adult age that isn't like, it's just a day.
Okay, so for me, it was like that for a long period of time, and then after my dad passed away, it's been more of a thing for me.
Right.
Number
Your dad's
one,
birthday was close to yours.
July 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Drew's is the 7th.
Yeah.
So.
But also, like, when I was growing up as a kid, I was always playing sports and everything like that. So like a lot of times, like if I did have a party, it was basically like my team. So it was like, okay, like I'm not really having an actual party, and because it was so close to the 4th of July,
right,
a lot of people would be traveling.
And you weren't in school,
right?
So so no cupcakes for the class.
So they would always celebrate it in like June, and it would be like and it was like all the June, July, and August birthdays.
See, and there's another
up.
difference, because when I was in school, if your birthday was in the summer, you just didn't count. Yeah. We didn't have and I'm familiar with what you're talking about, because I remember my kids had this when they were in school. The end of the year, let's celebrate everybody else's birthday party. When I was in school, you at the end of the year there was always like a carnival of some sort. But that was not a birthday party.
Yeah, in elementary school, we had like 2 of them. Yeah. Like a play day or something like that, where they had like a track, like some relay races or sack races, stuff like that. I remember
we played kickball one year.
Yeah. But so it was never really a big deal to me as a kid because of that. Like everybody's traveling for 4th of July. It's all summer, so. And when school's going on, kids can't really travel and go on vacation, so the parents will have to wait until the kids are out of school and everything to do that. So it was like, but then, having the birthday is close to, my dad and everything. And then, when I became probably 22, 23, him and I would celebrate together. And then when he passed, it became more of a bigger deal for me.
I just know, we've known each other, 5-6 years maybe, something like that? Pre-pandemic. Just shortly pre-pandemic.
That was like 2018 or something.
But every year Drew was like, I am going to get everybody I have ever met together, and we're going to have a huge party for my birthday.
Never happened.
And, but you've tried. And it's just funny because, like, my birthday, it just comes and goes, and I don't tell anybody. Yeah. And I feel like, that's what normal people do. But Drew, clearly not normal. But he is here on Here's the Thing every week, talking sports and a variety of other things. Drew, I appreciate you as always, man.
No problem. Thanks.
Before we wrap up, anything else you want to get out there?
No.
All right.
No, I didn't want to say the date, but you happened to say the date. Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was it secret?
I was supposed to be, but you ruined it now.
I don't feel like it was secret.
I just said 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know. But if I recall correctly, you hired like a plane to go overhead that like towed a banner a couple years ago.
No.
Seriously, this dude just goes way overboard on his birthday.
See, now he's lying, guys. Do not believe him.
I never lie. All right, Drew, thanks.
All right.
And thank you to you folks. We're going to play some music, and then we're out. You've been listening to Here's the Thing on All Western New York Radio.